So I want to make a point about political violence in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder as a way to sort of put in context what happened to him. And that is, there are consequences. There are foreseeable actions that people might take in response to certain things. And what happened to Charlie Kirk, and we can recognize the likelihood of certain reactions, and we can make the point that those reactions are a logical consequence that should have been anticipated as a result of certain things. We can acknowledge that without condoning it. Just because something is a foreseeable consequence does not mean it's justified. Okay? So I want to make that point. But what happened to Charlie Kirk, as wrong as it was, is a foreseeable consequence of the activity in which he engaged. When you constantly talk about depriving certain people of their rights, when you constantly demonize certain groups of people, which you have the First Amendment, absolute First Amendment right to do, when you do that, it is a foreseeable consequence of that someone might seek to do you harm. And again, saying that that is a foreseeable consequence does not mean we condone some crazy person if they commit a crime and do harm, in this case, murder Charlie Kirk. Saying that that is a foreseeable consequence does not mean we condone it. But this should not be surprising either. There are consequences, potential foreseeable actions that some people might take in response to you constantly advocating for denying certain groups of people their rights and to target them for discrimination and harassment and for ill treatment by the government. And as I say, you have an absolute constitutional right in this country to advocate for whatever position you want. You have a right to say things that are hateful and bigoted and discriminatory and to target certain groups of people. You have a right to say it. And no one has a legal right to harm you in any way because you said it. The proper response is to counter that person's speech with opposing speech, or to just ignore them altogether. It's not legal or appropriate to do physical harm in any way to someone who is saying something that you consider to be vile and hateful. But that some people might take that kind of action is not surprising. It's a foreseeable consequence and reaction to that hateful speech. Just like if you go walking alone in the middle of the night in some horrible, crime-ridden area of town, it's a foreseeable consequence that something bad might happen to you, that you might be victimized in some way. You might be robbed or worse. Now, that doesn't mean you deserve to be robbed for having walked in the middle of the night by yourself in some horrible part of town. but it's a foreseeable possibility. It's something that shouldn't surprise anyone. If you heard about someone having been robbed in the middle of the night when they were all by themselves in that horrible part of town, you'd say, well, what the hell did they expect? How stupid do you have to be to go walking down there by yourself in the middle of the night? Doesn't mean that you deserve to get robbed or that anyone condones a criminal robbing you. But, you know, it's obvious that something like that would happen. Same thing with engaging in hateful speech. When you do so publicly, especially, big country like this, there's a lot of crazies. When you engage in hateful speech and target certain groups of people, while it's not right, while nobody condones it, it's certainly not surprising that among the 330 plus million people who live in this country, there might be a few deranged people who might want to hurt you for saying those kinds of things.